The arena pulsed with electric energy, a cauldron of sweat, cheers, and the raw scent of adrenaline. The massive stadium was packed to the rafters, the crowd roaring as the main event of the premier mixed martial arts league reached its climax. In the octagon, Viper Malone, the reigning light heavyweight champion, stood over his fallen opponent, a Brazilian veteran named Torres, who lay motionless after a vicious spinning heel kick. Viper, a 6 feet 3 inches tower of muscle with a shaved head and a smirk that could curdle milk, soaked in the moment. His chest heaved, sweat glistened under the arena lights, and his eyes burned with arrogance. He raised his fists, not in triumph, but in defiance, scanning the crowd like a predator daring anyone to challenge him. "New York, you ain't got nothin' on me," Viper bellowed, his voice booming through the speakers. The crowd's reaction was split, half cheered wildly for their champion, half booed his cocky display. He strutted around the cage, pointing at fans, mocking their jeers. "Who's next? Huh? Who's gonna step up and get put down?" He grabbed the microphone from the announcer, his ego uncontainable. "I'm untouchable. Ain't nobody in this world can touch Viper Malone." The crowd's noise swelled, a mix of awe and irritation. Viper, never one to miss a chance to stoke the flames, scanned the VIP section ringside. His eyes locked onto a figure in the front row, a man in a tailored black suit, sitting calmly, his face unreadable. The man's presence was magnetic, even in stillness, his sharp jawline and steely gaze cutting through the chaos. Viper's lips curled into a sneer. He'd heard the rumors about this guy being in the audience tonight, and he couldn't resist. "Oh, look who we got here." Viper pointed at the man, the jumbotron zooming in on the figure. "Jason Statham. Hollywood's tough guy, huh? What you gonna do, old man? Throw a stunt double at me?" The crowd erupted, some laughing, others gasping at the audacity. Viper leaned over the cage, his voice dripping with mockery. "Come on, action star. Step in here, and I'll show you what a real fighter looks like." The arena fell into a stunned hush. All eyes turned to Jason. The man didn't flinch. He sat there, one leg crossed over the other, hands resting casually on his knees. His expression was stone cold, but his eyes, those piercing, unyielding eyes, locked onto Viper like a missile tracking its target. Slowly, deliberately, he uncrossed his legs and stood. The crowd held its breath. At 58, Jason was no spring chicken, but the man carried himself like a coiled spring, every movement precise, every glance loaded with intent. He wasn't just an actor, he'd been a diver on a national team, a street fighter in his youth, and a man who'd spent decades mastering martial arts for roles that felt more real than most fighters' resumes. Viper laughed, but there was a flicker of unease in his eyes. "What, you serious?" "Sit down, Grandpa," he shouted, but his voice cracked just enough to betray his bravado. Jason didn't respond. He didn't need to. He shrugged off his jacket, revealing a fitted black shirt that hugged his lean, muscular frame. The crowd roared, sensing something historic. Security guards hesitated, unsure whether to intervene as Jason stepped over the barrier and approached the octagon. The referee, a grizzled veteran named Marcus Reed, raised an eyebrow but didn't stop him. The energy in the arena shifted, less like a fight night and more like a gladiatorial spectacle about to unfold. Viper's smirk faltered as Jason climbed the steps into the cage. The champ towered over him, but Jason's presence filled the space in a way that made size irrelevant. The announcer, caught off guard, stammered into the mic, "Ladies and gentlemen, we have an unprecedented situation here tonight." Jason raised a hand, silencing him. He didn't need a microphone. His voice, low and gravelly, carried across the arena. "You talk a big game, kid. Let's see if you can back it up." The crowd lost it. Phones were out, live streams buzzing across social media, the hashtag Jason vs Viper trending within seconds. The league president, Victor Kane, watching from a private box, leaned forward, muttering, "This is either the dumbest or greatest thing I've ever seen." Viper, caught in his own trap, couldn't back down. He tossed the mic aside and nodded at Marcus Reed. "You want a fight? Fine. No rules, just you and me. Let's go." Marcus, ever the professional, hesitated. "This ain't sanctioned, Viper. You sure about this? Do it." Viper snapped, his ego overriding logic. Jason just nodded, calm as ever. Marcus sighed, signaled for the cage door to close, and raised his hand. "Fight." Viper charged immediately, all power and aggression, throwing a flurry of punches aimed at overwhelming Jason. But Jason moved like water, slipping, weaving, his footwork a masterclass in precision. He ducked a wild haymaker, his body low, and countered with a sharp elbow to Viper's ribs. The champ grunted, stumbling back, surprised by the force behind the strike. The crowd roared, sensing an upset. Viper recovered, his pride stung. He was younger, stronger, a professional fighter with a 22-1 record. He lunged again, this time aiming a knee at Jason's midsection. Jason caught the leg, twisted it, and sent Viper crashing to the mat with a judo-inspired takedown. The arena exploded. Jason didn't gloat, he just circled, his eyes locked on Viper, calculating. The fight wasn't just physical, it was a clash of wills. Viper was all fire and fury, a man who'd clawed his way from the streets of Chicago to the top of the league, fueled by a need to prove himself. Every punch he threw carried the weight of his past, abandoned by his father, raised in foster homes, fighting to survive. He wasn't just fighting Jason, he was fighting the world that had doubted him. But Jason was something else. He wasn't here for glory or to prove a point. He was here because Viper had crossed a line, and Jason's code, forged in the gritty streets of London and honed on film sets where he insisted on doing his own stunts, demanded respect. Not for himself, but for the game. His calm wasn't weakness, it was control. Every move was deliberate, every strike a lesson. Viper scrambled to his feet, his face a mask of rage. He threw a combination, jab, cross, uppercut, but Jason parried each one, his hands moving like a surgeon's. Then, in a blur, Jason closed the distance, landing a spinning back fist that caught Viper square on the jaw. The champ's knees buckled, but he didn't go down. He roared, tackling Jason to the mat, raining down ground and pound punches. The crowd was on its feet, screaming. Jason absorbed the blows, his arms shielding his face. For a moment, it looked like Viper might overwhelm him. But then, in a move straight out of an action film, Jason bridged his hips, flipped Viper off, and locked in a guillotine choke. Viper's eyes widened, his hands clawing at Jason's arms, but the hold was tight. The champ's face reddened, his struggles slowing. Marcus Reed hovered, ready to call it. But Jason, sensing the moment, loosened the choke just enough to let Viper breathe. He leaned in, his voice a whisper only Viper could hear. "This ain't about winning, kid. It's about respect." Viper, gasping, met Jason's eyes. For the first time, the champ's bravado cracked. He saw something in Jason, not just a fighter, but a man who'd faced his own battles, who'd earned his scars, who didn't need to shout to be heard. Viper tapped out. The arena erupted, a tidal wave of sound. Jason released the hold and stood, offering Viper a hand. The champ hesitated, then took it, pulling himself up. The crowd chanted Jason's name, but he didn't acknowledge it. He just nodded at Viper, a silent acknowledgement, and walked out of the cage, leaving the champ to face the crowd alone. Backstage, Viper sat in the locker room, his face bruised, his ego battered. He'd expected to feel humiliated, but instead, he felt different. Lighter. For years, he'd fought to prove he was enough. Tonight, Jason had shown him something else. Strength wasn't just in the knockout, but in the choice to walk away. As Jason slipped back into his jacket and disappeared into the New York night, social media lit up with clips of the fight. Fans called it the greatest moment in fight history. Analysts debated whether Jason could have gone pro. But for those in the arena, it wasn't just a fight. It was a story of pride, redemption, and the quiet power of a man who didn't need to raise his voice to make the world listen. Viper would fight again, but he'd never taunt a crowd the same way. And somewhere, in a gym or a bar, someone would swear they saw Jason, shadowboxing in the corner, a ghost of a smile on his face, ready for whatever came next.